All right, welcome to the Phantom Troupe Sushi Forum. We're on day 4 of discussing the Phantom Troupe proposal all week long. Today we've got a guest from Lightspeed and Jeff and Alex from Arca as well. Thank you guys for coming out. Omakase, I think you are going to start off with just sort of a general overview of the discussion so far and the proposal as it sort of sits. So if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, happy to start. And, throughout this process, everybody, please raise your hand if you have any questions. As we've said this whole week, these sessions are meant to give everybody a stage and opportunity to engage. I guess we can start with kind of like an overview of how the proposal has evolved. And, following up our discussions from yesterday, right now, the structure of the proposal is no discount spot, and then with an option set at a certain strike price with a certain expiry in the future. These details could be ironed out. As we said in the last session, we think this structure, and as Uma also said, this is all about incentive mechanism design, and this is why we're all in DeFi. And we feel that this structure is, can keep all parties aligned towards a very simple heuristic. And that heuristic is, bring sushi, up to a certain strike price, right? And if we're all in this together, we can make it happen. If not, and incentives are misaligned, then it won't happen, and the option will expire worthless. So that's the current state of the proposal. We'll probably, next week, we'll probably do a review and then put up the terms for a vote. If the vote passes, then we can start to discuss execution. If not, then, I think this entire process has been, super transparent, super accessible. And, as we mentioned yesterday, has also spurred a lot of innovation, right? So excited to also see what comes of these protocol level proposals that have also emerged and see, what, medium to long-term plans there are there. But, additionally, as we've, as I've, said, through every AMA, consistency is key. Engagement is key. And basically, the minimum requirement for any strategic partner is to engage with our governance. And, we've had multiple speakers throughout this process. And I think Lightspeed and Arca have consistently engaged with the community, has consistently engaged with this process, right? Amy was the first to post basically an intro to Lightspeed and why she thinks Lightspeed would be a strategic value added. Jeff and Arca also posted, a proposal that, essentially said discounts don't make any sense. They're value destroying. So all of this conversation, all of these dynamic AMAs, et cetera, are the result of, an engaging community. So this is something, we've gotten, Arca and Lightspeed here today because, they've been consistently engaging. They've been, providing, not only to core, but also to like the community, like lots of feedback, lots of discussion, and we're really grateful to them for that. And generally, they have different opinions about things, but the whole point of governance is that we can get together and optimize towards a certain goal. So I think that's a pretty good overview of where we are and where everybody stands today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Omakase. I wonder if this is a good time now to just give a little introduction again for those who don't know who Lightspeed and Arca. Maybe let's start with you, Amy, if you don't mind just giving us a quick little overview just to kind of warm up and let everybody know who you are and a little bit about Lightspeed, sorry.
No worries. Thanks, Tangle. And thanks for having me on again this week. Really appreciate it. And it's been like actually like a wonderful and very educational process, just learning more about the community and through this process, just true decentralized governance. So thanks for having us along the ride. And so a little bit more about Lightspeed. We've been around for about 25 years. We are, classic venture capital investors. We're in the business of building businesses and also supporting founders and teams over a very long time horizon. We are multi-geo, so I'm based in the Bay Area, but we have partners here in New York City, and also from a geo perspective, Israel, Europe, China, India, and Southeast Asia regions. And we work, and because, fundamentally we believe that, today so many companies are global and we want to be where our companies, their teams, and their customers are. And I think, Sushi is a great example of that. We also invest across categories. So we're tech investors, but we invest across sort of infrastructure, software, consumer tech, gaming, crypto. On the crypto side, we've been sort of quiet investors for the last few years now. We're investors in Wintermute and blockchain.com, FalconX, Matrixport, now announced this week FTX, and on the DeFi side, Zerion, Arbitrum, Parallel Finance, and Diversify, and we've gotten a number of other investments sort of in our pipeline. We have a long-term view, very excited about blockchain, and both think that we're still in kind of early stages of adoption, and very excited to help the community, expand adoption and be a part of that. I personally, I'm an investor. I lead our investments in crypto, gaming, and consumer growth. I have been a fan of Sushi for a long time, from afar. Have gotten to know the team over the last couple of months, and just very excited to help support, whether as an investor or not, depending on what the community believes.
Awesome.
Maybe like 2 more seconds about me, just because I feel like this it's sometimes like without seeing people's faces, it can be a little bit dehumanizing. So a little bit more about myself. I've been an investor for a long time. I started my career as an investor at Insight, but then I was actually I helped build companies for most of my career. I was at a software company in New York called NewsCred. And then, I was an executive with Discovery and learned the media business, was based in Singapore for a while, then back in New York City, and really helped build out our direct-to-consumer and sports business and esports before coming back and being an investor with Lightspeed. And so, I both love building and also, am an investor now. And it's a little bit more about me.
Great. Thank you. Let's move over to Jeff and Alex, if you don't mind. Just give us a little bit about Arca, a little bit about yourselves, and for those that don't know anything about you.
Sure. Yeah, and first and foremost, thanks for having us. How exciting is this? There is a public bidding war over who gets to invest in this awesome project. So I think that's something everyone should be proud of, and I'm pretty excited to be here. For those who don't know myself, I'm Jeff Dorman. I'm the Chief Investment Officer and one of the founders of Arca. Arca is a full-service digital asset management firm across the United States. We have different offices in Los Angeles and New York. We've been incredibly active investors since 2018 across the ecosystem. We have a lot of DeFi investments. We're active users across DeFi. We've been very active helping companies, but probably more importantly, we're really no different from an investing standpoint than anybody that's on this call. We invest in the public liquid markets for the most part. We are not the first one in. We are not the last one in. We try to find and identify good projects, and we do a pretty active job helping the companies and the projects grow. We have a pretty strong resume across DeFi, across gaming, across sports, NFTs, you name it. Getting involved in a token, investing in it, using the product, beta testing, working with these companies and projects to help make it better. And we've developed a little bit of a reputation for fighting on behalf of token holder rights. Whether that is incredibly constructive, like it is in this case, or even, at one point with Gnosis, where, we adamantly just disagreed with what the company and project was doing, and we fought for token holders in that regard. So, we consider us, really strong advocates of decentralization, of communities, and really getting to outcomes where everybody really wins. And about myself, if anyone cares, former investment banker, former bond trader, and then worked at big investment banks like Lehman Brothers and Merrill Lynch, worked at smaller funds, Citadel, also worked for a fintech company for 6 years, where that was really where I got into digital assets, working with full stack developers every day, and learning how to mine for Bitcoin and Ethereum, learning open source code and GitHub. So been really across finance and technology for a 20-year career. So I might be the old guy in the room.
Awesome, thanks. And Alex, I don't know if you want to just chime in a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name's Alex. I'm a research analyst here at ARCA. I don't have the history Jeff or Amy have, because this is my first job out of college. So I'll just leave it there.
Very bright, out of Whitman College up in Washington.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I guess at this point, we can kind of start looking at the deal structure, that I guess where it's come from. That might be, if you guys each want to talk about that a little bit. Amy, basically kind of, obviously you were the first ones to reach out in the forum, and sure appreciate that. And it sure stirred up quite a lot here. But I guess maybe just discuss how you feel about the current structure and what that's like for Lightstream, and then we'll get Jeff and Alex afterwards.
Yeah. Omakase, do you want to maybe first remind people what your guys' current proposed terms are, and then I can definitely provide some thoughts.
Sure, definitely. So currently, as it stands, right, after some polling and also engaging through these AMAs and meeting with multiple stakeholders and anybody who's willing to engage, right? As I said, my calendar is completely open, right? I've posted the link on the forum. Happy to post it in this AMA chat. Feel free to schedule something 15 minutes. And I do recommend, if Amy or Jeff want to open their calendars for a little bit limited amount of time, I do think that would be extremely constructive, right? Because this whole process is all about accessibility. We don't want to make anyone feel that they're being left out, they're not being heard, etc. So this is really important, and this is why we're committed to having these AMAs every day to kind of talk about the recent developments of this raise, any new proposals, etc., etc. So as it stands, yesterday we did go into detail with the newest proposed structure, which is given a lot of feedback, right? The original proposal was much too oversized. We're going to be reducing it to around 20 million. And 10 million will be, allocated for what we consider to be strategics, so institutions, and then another 10 million will be allocated for the community. Essentially what it comes down to is there will be no discount. It will most likely be a 30-day TWAP pricing. And at that price level, everybody will also have can also purchase an option as well. So as we said yesterday, we feel this structure is incredibly aligned because there's no upfront discount, right? So there's not value destroying. Also, the strike price really sets the tone for what we as a community hope to achieve together, right? Because if we don't achieve that strike price, then option expires worthless. So it's all about everybody working together towards achieving this price. That price is yet to be determined. We had some discussions yesterday regarding what everybody thought that price should be. Lots of engaging discussion there. Recommend everyone to check out yesterday's AMA where we kind of go into detail. So that's generally where it stands, right? There's a few key factors, right? We care about equality of access, right? So in everything we think about, right, we want to make sure that everybody gets the same, if not, the community can receive more favorable terms, right, than institutions. And for the community round, as I said yesterday, right, we'll be thinking execution-wise, we'll probably have more discussions next week and on Friday on how this community round should be structured, right? Because there are some edge cases, right? It was suggested that, we could do a whitelist, and this whitelist would, take a snapshot of all current Sushi holding addresses, and, because we want this allocation to be available only to current community members, right? People who are constantly engaging with us through this process, taking the time to schedule calls, propose revisions, etc. So this is generally where we stand on the kind of deal structure. And as I said, the structure right now is, I guess, incredibly important because it really forms kind of the vision for this kind of mechanism design that keeps all incentives aligned between all parties. The details we're happy to get into, but execution, and then generally, if this structure is sound, and we can proceed with determining. We'll put it to a snapshot vote. Specific details and then determining. So this is currently the current structure of the deal, and it addresses key pain points that the community has brought up, and that's the summary. And as I said, consistency of engagement is key, and across all the discussions we've been having, with community, with the one-on-ones that are scheduled on my calendar, with also ARCA, with also Lightspeed, with also other strategic partners. I think ARCA and Lightspeed have definitely been both of the two most appreciate that. However this turns out, right, and whatever each opinions are, I think that's key, that they've shown consistent engagement and are willing to put themselves on the stage time and time again. I think that's pretty critical. So yeah, I think that's generally the structure of the deal, and I'm happy to continue to discuss these finer details.
Yeah, that's a good summary, Omakase, of the proposed deal right now. I would like to ask both ARCA and Lightspeed to sort of expand and talk about some of the specific sort of strategic advantages that they could bring to Sushi in terms of, because one of the big things that we've been talking about is the sort of deal flow and bringing people onto Sushi and bringing new projects onto Sushi. And I believe we've also, one of the considerations is sort of consulting for regulatory or legal questions. But yeah, I would like to open it up into talking about those types of issues.
Before we get to that, though, do you mind if I want to give a little more background here, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
For those who may or may not have seen the original proposal that ARCA came out with, and the Twitter thread, the proposal in the forum, just for some context here, we had no intention of being involved in this deal at first, right? We own, I think, more than anyone in the from a secondary market standpoint. We bought every Sushi token in the market that we had. Our objective from the beginning was just to stop a bad deal from happening and to help the community, and we've succeeded so far, right? I mean, the original proposal, let's just be honest, it was not good. We have gone 180 degrees to get to someplace pretty awesome here. And all we really wanted to do now was add our expertise, which is finance, structuring, banking, and being a power user throughout DeFi. The original kind of club deal, it probably started with good intentions, honestly. Usually they do, but it ends with a bunch of people just jumping on at the end because they saw free money, right? So we're not anti investors who were in that deal. We think the way it just happened to all of a sudden go from a small deal to $60 million at a huge discount it just made no sense, right? And I'm glad we stopped that. I'm glad where we got to where we are now. But now we're seeing decentralization at its finest, right? We as a community didn't like a deal. We succeeded to change it. It went from something where only a few firms win to now something where it's pretty fair and all parties are going to win, from investors to the team to community members. And we cleared the deck. We got rid of some opportunistic, quote unquote sharks, and now we're down to a core group of passionate people who really support what Sushi is doing here. So, just from our standpoint, all we care about right now is we want to meet the goals of Sushi and the community. And we understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, we understand the goals to be diversify the treasury and add some new strategic partners who can really add value. So part of the reason, we've had some really good conversations with Amy at Lightspeed and with the Sushi team, and actually, quite frankly, lots of other investors. We've had new investors who have never been involved in Sushi from the traditional finance world who've been calling us, asking us, how do they get involved? This sounds amazing. What do they do? It's been fascinating. But, for us, public governance and decentralization is just all about compromise. And I think that's what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to come together to meet the goals of everyone. Sushi's goals, as we already mentioned, they need to get a little bit of dollars and not just be concentrated in Sushi. They want to add the partners. The new investors that are coming in seem to have a goal of supporting the project, as well as making money on the outside. The community wants fair treatment. I think, true democracy and everybody getting the same deal. I think we're getting there. So we're getting to this point of alignment where I really believe everybody is going to be better off here. And, while we may have had some differences to start with, I'm really personally pleased at how those differences are starting to, become more actionable to a common goal. So, I think we're all pretty clearly aligned now on the future of Sushi and where we're going. So, and I also would just say, I actually think this is going to be a case study for all governance in the future. Being the first real project and protocol to prove that token holders do in fact have a voice and that decentralized governance works. So, congrats to the Sushi team for being able to get so many different people with different ideas in rooms together to discuss this. And I think we're ready to get this to a vote and really move to the next stage here. So before I get into why ARCA is going to be such a strategic partner, I also want to just make sure people understand our view on the deal that's proposed, because as most people probably know, we came out with a deal that we said we'll go backstop. We'll buy $10 million of our own to start at fair prices, at the current price, and then we think Sushi should ladder sales in the future. Essentially, Amy's proposal at Lightspeed and ultimately what the Sushi community is starting to agree on as we get to these new terms, it's not too far away from what we originally proposed. Essentially what we're doing here is we went from selling way too many tokens at a depressed price to now selling way less tokens at a much better price. So more money is going to be raised over time at much higher prices and way less dilution for everybody. And I think nobody's actually presented the math. If I could share my screen, I would. I don't even know if that's possible here, but we'll put it out on. Sorry.
I was just going to say we could, but it would limit the amount of people that could view it to like a very small number.
We'll put
Maybe
it on.
you can just post it on the community forum.
Yeah, we'll put it on the forum when we're done. We'll put it on Twitter when we're done here. But I mean, we ran the math here, right? The original proposal, which was a 30% discount to a 30-day TWAP, that was going to be 9.9 million tokens at $6.04 based on today's TWAP. That's $60 million, 9.9 million tokens, $6 a token. When we came out with our deal, it was slightly better. It was basically going to be 7.1 million tokens, so a reduction of 3 million tokens sold at an average price of $8.53, so a 41% increase in the price. It was going to be 28% less tokens sold, 41% increase in price to get the same proceeds. The new proposal, as I understand it, is actually going to be even better than that. It's going to be an average price of about $11.56 if you assume $20 million sold today at the 30-day TWAP, and then an additional, roughly $40 million sold once those warrants are fully exercised at a 100% higher price. Now you're looking at a total of 5 million tokens sold at an average price of $11.56. So now you're 91% higher than the original proposal in terms of the price that Sushi is going to get for selling these tokens, and you have 48% less tokens being sold. So from a math standpoint, and again, I use the term warrant, not option. If people on the phone aren't necessarily familiar with the difference between an option and a warrant, what we're proposing here is a warrant. It's not an option. An option is something that is traded between multiple counterparties. A warrant is issued by a company, and it's just a promissory note in terms of we are going to sell forward tokens. We're going to sell tokens in the future at a predetermined higher price. So it's not a free gift or anything. It is basically saying we're going to sell some today
and we're going to sell more tokens tomorrow at a much higher price. That again is good for everybody. It's good for the investors. It's good for Sushi. This is as far as I'm concerned, this is the best deal on the table. You're instead of selling 30% of the tokens in Treasury, which was the original deal, you're going to end up selling 7.5% of the tokens from the Treasury, again, at these much higher prices. So I just want to make that distinction here that, this is not, I've heard all these discussions about option pricing and what the option's worth and all that. That's not what this is, right? A warrant is literally just a promise to buy more tokens at a higher price in the future. And again, that works out for everybody involved. So, if there are slight disagreements still in terms of the tenor, meaning how long should the warrant be, or the strike price, like that's fine. People can go back to the drawing board all they want and come up with what they think the right mix is. But at the end of the day, adding a warrant is just a creative way of doing exactly what ARCA proposed in the first place, which is sell tokens at higher prices over time. So we're pretty excited about it. And I also just want to go back to the, this attitude we had earlier about like it's so important to get everybody on the same page and get everybody aligned, right? This is not unique to Sushi. This is what ARCA has been doing since day one of starting our company. We are trying to fight for everyone because that's what decentralization is for us. There are real benefits to getting institutional money in from strategic partners, and we're going to go through that. So ARCA is going to be a leader in that. I know Amy's going to be a leader in that at Lightspeed. I'm sure others as well. I'm talking about specifically what we can do to help the community and to help Sushi going forward. And I think most importantly, like I said, everybody is getting a fair deal here. And for me personally, we own $50 million worth of Sushi already from the secondary market. The size of this deal or the amount we get in this deal is fairly irrelevant to us relative to our core position, right? We're coming along on this deal because we want to support Amy. We want decentralization to work. We want to support Sushi. We want to come to an agreement that works for everybody. It's not about how much we get in this deal. We just want to see the overall project succeed. And I think, like I said, the most important thing about doing that is to show this unity and to show that governance really works. So anyway, I wanted to put that out there and just recognize for anyone on the phone and maybe who sees a transcript later, this is opening the world's eyes. There are people calling us from the outside world who had never heard of Sushi before and never really believed in governance and DeFi before, and they are excited. They are trying to figure out, how do I get in? Because this is the first time that anyone has actually seen decentralization and public governance work. So thanks for giving me a couple minutes here before we get into exactly what ARCA is going to do moving forward as a strategic partner.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. Maybe this is a good time to let Amy. I think you were originally going to start talking about the deal here, and things just kind of migrated around. But let's give you some stage time here.
Yeah, no worries. It's free-flowing conversation. So thanks so much for Omakase for reminding everybody what the current deal structure is, and for Jeff. It's been great actually having the conversations with Jeff. Definitely discovered that his he's a little bit nicer than his Twitter persona, and it's been really great sort of brainstorming actually the different ways that we could both potentially partner and help the Sushi community going forward. If this is where you guys if this is where the community votes. I think a few things first on the deal structure. Really, the intentions are really great all along. I think there was an original proposal that included a discount. Now, this was a term that, quite frankly, investors have grown accustomed to with token sales. But, you guys had then thought about it from a first principles perspective, and it didn't seem fair. And so, I, along with everybody else, thought about it and came up with and helped come up with a new proposal. And and the community was honestly right. And I think that our last conversation last week was a great way to frame the thinking, which is, it doesn't actually make sense to have an investor get a discount on the way in. Essentially, you're paying them for success on the way in versus, a more success-based sort of upside where with a lot of value add and continuously working with the team and partners that you're able to generate value all together. And I think that, the new proposal that Omakase had proposed really does capture a lot of those points. I really love that there's, and we're still, I think, exploring some of the legal implications of it, but a way for the community to also join in as well. Having a warrant type of structure that at a higher strike price a significantly higher strike price that would allow, and over a long period of both maturity and also vesting, that allows us to really work together, build trust, put in the value, and build Sushi to, where we are very confident it can get to. So, we would still be super excited to be part of the round. But I just want to say, like, by no means do we feel like entitled to be part of that. We want to work with you guys and fight in your corner, but it is completely up to the community to vote. And so, and I do want to say, if the community decides that we're not the right partner, we're huge fans. We'll support you from the sidelines, but we really hope to be in rather than otherwise. In terms of ways that we have traditionally added value, and I think there's a little bit of a lot of discussion around, a lot of the value add from VC is so squishy, and also there's a lot of, and I want to acknowledge that venture capital investors have traditionally done a lot of good, and there's also bad actors out there. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of having investors, and I think, and I'm going to reiterate again, the only way to really kind of understand that better is to talk to people who work with us, right? Like, don't take my word for it. Like, talk to Steven at Arbitrum, or Sam, at FTX, and a bunch of other people that we've either had to the ability to work with very closely, relatively recently, or like for many years, companies in our portfolio. And those areas of value add are kind of very on a regular basis. We help with hiring, we and what does that really mean? We have a team, first of all, that helps teams build and recruit executives, managers, engineers, etc. But I also, for the companies that I work with, I'm on calls every single week with potential candidates trying to recruit them. It's a really competitive workforce out there, and there's a lot of DeFi projects, blockchain projects, and so the battle for talent is pretty intense, and that's where investors are in your quarter trying to help recruit great candidates, along with, of course, the Sushi team and community. And then other areas, I would say, I mentioned this already, but in terms of BD, I mean, we have a team at Lightspeed that has relationships with the chief investment officers of every single major U.S. bank, and so we have programs where we connect our portfolio companies and introduce them to them, and also sort of Fortune 500 companies in general. And these were relationships that have been developed over many years. They trust us to connect them with great projects and teams. And so, these warm introductions do, at least help future partnerships. And I think one of the great futures that I see for Sushi is that, because Sushi has such a broad range of products in DeFi, that you guys can be, one of the leaders in connecting to the CeFi world and even beyond centralized finance, into other, other types of consumer tech companies and social networks, where as a means for a lot of mainstream users to get connected into DeFi. And so that's an area that we are super excited about. I mean, I think we talked about areas of legal and compliance. Obviously, regulatory compliance is a major topic that is very distinct across jurisdiction, and also by company. And we're very engaged with our external counsel and understanding that real time. There's a lot of uncertainty, but this is an area that we're already engaging with the team in terms of understanding and to be compliant as well. And I would say lastly, that we are also just long-term thought partners. I mean, this week alone, I've been on calls with both Jeff and the Sushi team on a daily basis. This is not unusual. I'm usually on the phone or meeting with companies in our portfolio every single week. There's a lot of things that come up, whether it's hiring, or there's some fire, or there's strategic product decisions, and sometimes sometimes teams just want a partner who have been along for the ride, understands the product very intimately, to weigh in and be a thought partner, and that's what we provide sort of with all companies that we're involved in. And it's hard to quantify that, but it's something that compounds and is built over time, and that's very, very central to the value that we at Lightspeed bring, and certainly will again, feel free to, sort of talk to any of our companies that can talk to kind of what we can do there. Yeah, I think those are some of the ways. And certainly if there's questions from the community, I'm happy to chat. And also, I'm figuring out how to set up a Calendly right now, but I will be free from 9 p.m. tonight to midnight Pacific time. We'll shoot out either probably on the community forum, a Calendly, and anyone in the community, if I'm happy to meet with on a one-on-one basis, whether you guys want to talk about this proposal or Lightspeed, what can we bring to the table, more about me, whatever you guys want to talk about. I am really excited actually about meeting more members of the community. This is actually one of the most rewarding aspects of this, getting to know Sushi better. Again, you guys are absolutely trailblazing in figuring out and also setting an example for how decentralized governance should work. This has been an incredible learning process for us and for myself personally. And so, yeah, hope to be part of that.
Thank you, Amy.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Amy. I mean, I get excited hearing some of that stuff. It's funny, we don't have a marketing deck about how we help companies and projects because we just do it. I mean, we buy all these, our history as a fund, and that wasn't meant relative to Lightspeed or anyone else. It's just, it's funny being in this forum talking about it because we don't really compete. We've never competed for deals at ARCA. We just buy tokens that we like, and then we strike up conversations with the community and with the managers and leaders, and we've been, helping forever. And it's awesome to see change. And again, this is why we're so excited to now be working alongside Amy and, putting our differences aside and starting to work together for a common good here. So we started to just write down, not the history of ARCA and what we've done, but specifically, what are we going to do here for Sushi? How do we use the fact that ARCA is now a pretty big company? We have 30 people across legal, compliance, marketing, research, investor relations. We all have 10 to 30 years of experience here across finance and tech. So we just started writing down all the things that we do already for Sushi and that we're going to continue to do as a real power user and also power investor for Sushi. So first and foremost, we're going to be continued active participants in governance. I think that probably goes without saying. You've seen what we've done so far. We're going to be active participants in community AMAs. We're also going to, and we'll also obviously be continued users of Sushi and all the products, which continue to be rolled out at a tremendous pace. And oftentimes we always joke sometimes that Uniswap is Coinbase with a single product offering, and Sushi is FTX. It just keeps coming with more and more awesome products, listening to the community. So we're pretty excited about where it's headed. But in addition to being a power user and power and governance, we're going to take a really active role with Sushi on continued treasury diversification. What do we bring to the table at ARCA? We have a tremendous amount of finance and legal and banking experience. So we're going to use that capital markets experience and this, our experience being an active liquid manager in the digital asset space. We're going to help them diversify into other investments. Putting unproductive capital from the treasury to work, through generating yields or other ways. So, if we can be a liaison for the Sushi team in terms of continuing to grow that treasury and make better use cases out of it, we're going to throw all the resources and experience that we have towards helping there. Further alongside on the finance side, we're going to work with Sushi on financial planning and transparency. We have been a huge advocates of transparency in digital assets, whether it's Maker or Wi-Fi, or Aave, or even to some extent Binance. We love this push for public transparency in financial reports. Modeling growth so people understand where it's headed. We'll even consult on what an analytics page should look like. Every single investment we've made at ARCA, we know what the finances look like. We know what the KPIs and metrics look like because we push for that. We go to the companies and say, we will invest a little bit now. We'll invest a lot more if you start to give us tangible metrics that we can work with, because we know how important and powerful that is. So we're going to get Sushi, we're going to work with them on trying to share that same vision that we have for the entire space with Sushi specifically, so that everybody in the community knows exactly what's going on. Further, again, going back to the finance kind of restructuring banking experience that we have, Sushi's a great token already. Maybe it could be even better. We'll work on tokenomics. There's a lot that can be done here with Sushi. Additionally with like the move to Trident, potentially even a larger percentage of revenue going to ex-Sushi holders due to the liquidity that comes from Bento Box and earning additional yield. Maybe we're not done figuring out what the right revenue split is to ex-Sushi holders and how to incentivize growth between LPs and token holders. We'd like to explore some of these things with Sushi and with the community and try to find these optimal outcomes. This is really what our skill set is figuring out how to find these optimal outcomes. Again, going further with investment banking, MISO is going to be awesome. We'll help to draft industry best practice standards for projects that want to be listed on MISO, and to use Sushi as a fundraising platform. I mean, already, even just since putting out our Twitter thread and our forum piece a week ago on Sushi, we've had about six or seven projects reach out to us saying, "Hey, can you help us?" That's awesome. We're not pitching to them; they're coming to us. They see what Arca can do and that we can help, and we're going to steer them towards MISO and Sushi and really maximizing what they can do. So all of a sudden we turn a one awesome project into a whole ecosystem of awesome projects. So along those same lines of industry best practices, what are some of these things? Strong tokenomics, clear and transparent vesting schedules where investors and insiders don't vest too early. These are all things that we can help other projects and do it, within the Sushi ecosystem. And then lastly, I think everybody wants an answer to this, so we'll throw it out there as well. One of the co-founders of Arca, besides me, was Rain Steinberg. If you Google Rain Steinberg, he was also the co-founder of Wisdom Tree, which is one of the largest ETF companies. Well, ETFs barely existed when he founded Wisdom Tree. He had to go through regulatory relief with the SEC for years before they could get some of their ETF products out. The other co-founder is a guy named Phil Liu. He was a securities lawyer for 25 years. He's structured just about every product under the sun from a legal and regulation standpoint. We understand regulation. We also have a gentleman by the name of Peter Hans who runs investor relations for Arca. But guess what he did before Arca? He was one of the managing partners and head of research for Height Analytics, which was a Washington policy research firm. All they did was work with Washington to try to get understanding of legal and regulatory frameworks for healthcare and for telecom. So we have a pretty large legal and regulatory knowledge base and team here. And also, you guys may not know, but in addition to the hedge fund that we have at Arca, we also created the first ever blockchain transferred fund, or BTF. It's called Arcoin. It's basically just an ETF, only instead of trading on exchanges, it trades peer-to-peer. We had to go through, again, an exemptive relief process with the SEC from 2018 until the end of 2020 when we finally got approved for this product. So we know this landscape really well. We know regulation is coming, but there are ways to go about this in the right way, and we're going to be pretty helpful with Sushi as well as the rest of DeFi, quite frankly, to help get through that process. So we bring a lot to the table. Like I said, it's not something we openly pitch often because we're not competing for the deals. We're just already in the projects, and then we help anyway. But we will explicitly set a standard here for transparency and for working with communities to make sure people understand exactly what we can offer.
Awesome. Thank you for talking about that. I do want to get to some of the questions that people are asking from listeners. I know we have NU has had his hand raised for a bit. If you're there, NU, I sent an invite out to you. There you go. Can't hear you.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Hey, thanks for Jeff and Amy for coming and speak to us. And I appreciate you guys detailing the values you guys can add to the community and to the project. I guess one thing that I'd be really curious to understand is, obviously it's one thing to figure out what you guys can do, but also it's another for us to, as a group, figure out, what are some of the urgent needs that we have as a group. And if you, if you look at, how would you prioritize the needs and where Sushi really needs help with, especially against the backdrop of the fact that, Sushi has about almost similar TVL as the Pancake and Uniswap, but revenues and transaction volumes are about approximately half to a quarter of the other guys. So, it's one thing to talk about regulatory help, but what do you think are the things that's causing Sushi to be behind from a revenue and traction perspective? And any comments on that would be really, really helpful. Just, your insights in terms of why this is happening and what can be done and what should be done right now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm going to turn it over to Alex Woodard, who introduced himself earlier, one of our strongest analysts here at ARCA. But I'm not sure all of that is necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, you hear all the time about what do you want when you build a project? You don't want a billion disengaged people. You want a small amount of incredibly passionate, engaged people, and clearly that's what we have in the Sushi community. And again, this is why I draw the FTX parallels, right? FTX has way less users than Coinbase and much lower revenue than Coinbase. And guess what? They just got an $18 billion valuation, which is half of Coinbase's, because they're doing things right. They are making sure their community and their customers love them, and they're rolling out products that they can actually use. And eventually that turns into something huge. So I'm not sure chasing Uniswap necessarily for revenues or volumes is the answer. But that being said, let me turn it over to Alex, who can give a little more specifics.
Yeah. As Jeff mentioned a little bit earlier, that a project like Uniswap has all these users, and where SushiSwap has significantly less. That's been an interesting dynamic. We at ARCA talk about how Sushi's users are much more power users, and Uniswap is just an intro to DeFi. And I think when we look at some of the data, we really see that. So for instance, in June, where transaction volumes and revenues fell off significantly, we weren't seeing that in terms of users, and we also weren't seeing that in number of transactions. It was slightly down, like 5 to 7% month over month. And so what we're seeing is this interesting dynamic where there's a ton of traders still. Like, we haven't lost very many traders compared to Uniswap, and we haven't lost many transactions, but the transactions are a lot smaller. And so our conclusion at ARCA here is that, and partially because a lot of the users of Sushi are much more DeFi native power users, is that they're mainly just yield farming at the moment and still selling on SushiSwap. So that's how you get the lower transaction or lower trading volumes while still having the high transaction count and higher user number. So we actually think Sushi is in a really good position with that, even though volumes have fallen, say slightly more than Uniswap, to gain all those volumes back faster, because it hasn't lost their users. They're still interacting. And when trading becomes a really much more EV positive thing to do in this market over yield farming, we see all that trading volume coming back. So I hope that gives some clarity there.
Also notice Alex used the word we and not they when talking about Sushi, which I think is important. We're all in this together.
Sushi's
Yeah, and
a
I think
family.
that's I think to add some color to that as well.
But yeah, go ahead.
I think Amy, please go
No,
ahead.
honestly, you should go first, and then I'll add my thoughts.
No problem. I think generally, right, as we've laid out in our definition of strategic, right, because that was, we've had multiple AMA sessions about this, and that has always been a pain point with the original proposal. What does strategic mean, right? So in our proposal, we laid out like Sushi is basically, Core believes that Sushi is basically, at an inflection point, a very important one, because we spent the last 3 quarters building all these, financial primitives on a decentralized ecosystem. You're starting to see things come together, like Bento Box, right? Kashi on Bento Box, Trident on Bento Box. Why Bento Box? Because Bento Box is the most capital efficient platform there will ever be on blockchain, right? So if you kind of start to see the thought process of all of our products, etc., all of our products are moving towards capturing continuous network effects. What does that mean, right? On Bento Box and on Trident we can allow for any new inclusion of any new pool type, right? There's already teams talking and engaging with us after our discussion to add new pool types. And essentially by adding new pool types, you add new AMMs, right, into Trident itself, right? On MasterChef V2, right? We're already seeing dual rewards, right? Where projects put up their own rewards. And this lessens the burden on Sushi and our emission rate, right? So with all these things coming together, we're really at an inflection point to create a more comprehensible, understandable product with a better user experience, better UI, etc. Right? We have all the core components, and now it's pretty much trying to figure out like, okay, how do we place these together? And can we onboard strategic partners, right? Like Jeff, Amy, and others that have been highly engaged throughout this process to give us basically the right framework and right foundation in order to like increase our trajectory, right? By 100x fold, 1000x fold, right? Yesterday, when we were talking about like, what should we set this, what should we set the price of this option, warrant, et cetera? What should the strike price be, right? And, as Hart from UMA said, these things are like, there's different ways to price them. There's different ways to think about them, right? But fundamentally, right, as I said yesterday, it's all about comparables. I said, we shouldn't just be thinking about like competing against Uniswap, right? We're an ecosystem, right? Like our range of products have moved far beyond just, an AMM, right? We have lending, we have, from lending, you can also construct options, right? You can start to do lots of interesting things with everything we have available. And now it's really the time to focus on how do we get everything together? And then how do we compete with the big boys, right? And the big boys in our mind, right? And as I said yesterday, are Coinbase, right? Why can't we like eventually in like, a couple quarters, right? Once there's a general enhancement to the entire DeFi ecosystem and the UX and the UI, right? From wallets to logins, et cetera, we can become, and L2 solutions, right? We can become very, very, very competitive with, centralized products in a decentralized way, right? And additionally, right, I gave some examples of that. Like limit orders that we've just launched on Polygon is more competitive, against centralized exchanges in numerous different ways, right? It's built on Bento Box, so any of your balances are automatically accruing yield, right? And you can open up, multiple virtual limit orders, right? Because since all balances are virtual on Bento Box, you don't actually need to commit the actual, you don't have to have the actual amount committed in order to create a limit order, and then if the order can be fulfilled, it'll execute, right? So this allows, users to construct, multiple different types of limit orders that are all connected, right? So this is something that we're seeing that we're already starting to become competitive against centralized exchanges. So why not expand that, and why not aim for something really high? That's the whole point of this strategic round, because we need strategic partners with lots of industry experience, right? Like Amy and Jeff together, right? Combined, they have 100 years of experience, right? With growing companies and handling regulatory concerns, and also allowing us to, as I say in the strategic portion, the definitions of what it means, what is strategic to Sushi, right? We really have the opportunity as an ecosystem to also set standards, right? Because all these projects are launching on Sushi, right? We have all this infrastructure ready to go. Now's the time to consolidate the product, set standards, and then really just like put this thing on a rocket ship, right? Because once all these things come together, users will have the best experience, projects will have the best experience, more range of features, and like all built on a decentralized infrastructure. And if you've heard previous AMAs, right, this has always been the mandate of the community, right? And this is always why when people are looking from outside to inside, they're always like, Sushi has so many products. Like, why are they building so many products, right? Because the ultimate vision is that we're going to build a comprehensive set of products, right, that can compete with something like Coinbase, right? If we're just doing AMM, right, and we do that to death, right, and we're not thinking about multi-chain deployments, and we're not thinking about like growth on L2s, right? How do we make the user experience better for people, et cetera? And there's no way you can compete against something like Coinbase, right? Coinbase has, tons of other features now that are just, that are not, focused on, just trading, right? So it comes down to, leveraging our community, right? Leveraging our strategic partners, and ultimately leveraging all the existing features to create something that we can all be proud of, right? Create something that one day we can say, hey, we're actually going toe to toe with Coinbase. People are having a better experience. We're having better volume. We're having better KPIs. And I think that's, like, everyone always says, like, oh, maybe that goal is too aggressive. Like, I think that's a completely reasonable goal, right? For the time horizon that we've set, right, for these strategic investors. And that's kind of the exciting part here. And, I'm super, I'm super glad that, you know, Amy and like Jeff, you know, are coming here together, you know, discussing their own opinions and, you know, helping us craft, you know, a better deal structure, helping, you know, advise on, you know, deal structure, you know, growth, etc. Like, I think that's really the power of like decentralization, that like things can just organically come together, and, you know, build towards, you know, a certain trajectory. So that's been amazing. And, you know, I'll let Amy, you know.
Yeah, just let me just interject for a second, Omakase. I
Sure.
appreciate what you just said, and you know, obviously, you're very passionate, and you should be. You're working on the core team, and I think there are divergent opinions within a group in terms of what is the best product strategy for sushi. And different people have different opinions. I was more really interested in hearing what Jeff and Amy have to say with how what they see as a problem. Because obviously, they're coming with a level of expertise and a level of network and value add. But before you get to figure out what value you need to add, it's helpful to understand, how they see the problem. And I also agree with you that the more people around the table that can contribute to the community in terms of guiding it down the right path is better. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have strategics around. I'm actually like you. I agree that having more people around the table that can be helpful and can be strategic is valuable. So
awesome.
I'll just add a couple more points to that, because I actually think Omakase's sort of points around product is the most important part of this. But a little bit of nuance is that I think it comes with increasing awareness of sushi as well. So the way that I think about it is that, fundamentally, Jeff's right. You don't need a lot of you don't necessarily need a lot of users. What you need is up transaction volume, right? Because transaction volume leads to more liquidity, and also, more revenues, and that's what's going to drive up sushi value. And so then how do you attract transaction volume? And there's a couple of points. The first is that for exchanges, whether you're in CeFi or DeFi, increasing market share doesn't happen overnight. And actually, I think FTX is a great example of that. They made a large number of product decisions from the point that they started that eventually snowballed to overtaking, some of the other exchanges to the position they're on now. And the same thing, and I think, Sushi's already the number 2 DEX on Ethereum, and in terms of continuing to grow the gap to others and also sort of narrow the gap to Uni, I think product is really key. And to Omakase's point, I think that I am personally extremely excited about the launch of Trident, because I think it is the answer to Uniswap v3, and it increases capital efficiency. And when you think about the primary users in DeFi, capital efficiency is an extremely important value that any in terms of when they're thinking about like which of the DEXs or lending protocols, etc., they're going to use. But and so like first is you need to have the killer products, and then you're continuing to deploy killer products that are that have either at par or is leading or is like the market leader compared to the other DEXs. The second thing is that there needs to be general awareness, because you could be the best product out there, but if nobody knows that, then you also want to attract users. And I think this is where actually a strategic investor like Lightspeed can really bring a lot of value. We have a amazing sort of marketing PR team internally. In fact, our head of marketing PR used to run communications for Google. And so we have worked with almost every single one of our portfolio companies around positioning, how to talk to the press. And this is beyond, everybody in DeFi obviously knows who Sushi is, and actually, pretty much everyone in crypto. But I think more people should understand how you guys differentiate, why you guys are the number 1 DEX and sort of platform, right? You're so much more beyond just the AMM. And then and also what outside of DeFi and outside of even crypto, sort of who is Sushi, and in terms of positioning that, helping with the right PR. This is where, for example, Coinbase and some of these other exchanges were very strategic from the beginning, bringing on the right partners to help with that, craft that message. And so I think the two of these things combined is really helpful in the sort of like along towards bringing sushi to absolutely a mainstream audience. And there's nothing stopping you guys from, from acquiring, from being dominant in both institutional investors, prosumer investors, and also eventually retail investors as well. And that is something that we'd be really excited in helping with. The last thing I would say is the third sort of pillar amongst all of this is it's very important that you guys continue to maintain your speed of execution. I've mentioned this in the community forum before, but one of your guys' absolute biggest advantages is that you're super fast in deploying products. And again, this compounds over time. And I think that the community's involvement in product development is one of the key reasons why you are so fast at it. And so this is more of like continuation of something that you're already good at, but something that we would absolutely be excited to continue to support.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Jeff.
No, I'm going to go real quick here. I mean, I think it's incredibly obvious to anyone who's ever been involved with Sushi and the team that they know the tech, right? The tech is awesome. What needs to happen now is more than that, right? The finance, the scaling, the marketing. I mean, there's so much more to running a business than just building a product. And I think that's really important to remember, that even things like just passing governance get people's attention. I mean, as I mentioned at the top of the hour here, we've had calls from 4 to 5 large growth equity firms, family offices, traditional finance firms who are like, what's going on with Sushi? This sounds amazing. Like, what's happening, right? That leads eventually to casual observers turning into Sushi owners and DeFi users. So, there's certainly a lot more besides just the product that goes into solving some of these problems. And again, I think that's why having a community, well beyond obviously just Amy, me, and the people talking right now. I mean, the whole community. I mean, everyone's going to be adding value across how we get there. But if you want to go like specifically in terms of product improvement, I'll give you a quick example, just using Kashi as an example, right? We'll start like we're gonna. Well, let's start with Kashi. Okay, Aave and Compound both have cleaner interfaces in our opinion right now, and most importantly, they've used yield farming to boost their total borrow and total lend. In our opinion, the goal here shouldn't be to add Sushi yield farming to Kashi, similar to Aave and Compound, but instead to further integrate all the products together and improve the customer stickiness. If Sushi down the line creates derivative products, then Kashi can be used for that, right? So what you ultimately do here is you turn Sushi into a one-stop shop or a prime brokerage. And I think, we and others can help. Once we get there, we can help figure out how to get Sushi to move towards that eventually being an institutional product. So we're really excited to be testers of various products like Trident and come back with more ideas, after we've had the chance to do that. But I think ultimately it's testing the products, giving feedback, and ultimately just broadening the number of eyeballs who are looking at this, and eventually broadening the numbers of users.
Awesome. Yeah, that seems like a great sort of explanation of sort of some of the advantages and value add that you guys bring. Did that answer your question, NU?
Yeah, I think we've expanded on a lot of stuff here anyways, so I think that should cover for NU, and we are into it for an hour now, so let's get some other community members here, get them up to ask questions, and we'll try and get through some of this as well. So Crypto Bunker.
Yeah, thank you for your question, NU. And Crypto Bunker, you got your mic on?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and thanks to Arca and Lightspeed. You guys have been, engaging really meaningfully, so appreciate that. So this question, I have 2 questions, and one for Jeff and one for Amy. I'll start with the question for Amy. You said you have an expertise in gaming specifically with some of your partners. So I know that you guys are partners with Epic Games, and I mentioned this on another call, but I wanted to ask directly to you. Do you have insight into where Epic Games and maybe Fortnite is in terms of blockchain and NFTs? When talking about trading like in-game items, is that something that you think could be integrated with Sushi on the back end, and maybe even the users wouldn't even know they're using Sushi, kind of like what Omakase mentioned before, centralized products in a decentralized way, where they're on the front end, they're just trading, items, and on the back end, it actually exists on Sushi. So just throwing that idea out there, just seeing what you thought of that.
I'm happy to answer that really quickly. Yeah, I could talk for hours about gaming. I've covered it for many years, and yeah, at Lightspeed, I'm an investor in Epic Games and about 7 other gaming companies right now, and then I have regular conversations with all of the major gaming publishers. I will say, including Epic and yes, directly with Tim, and I will say in general that the large gaming publishers are going to be on the slower end of blockchain adoption because all of them are worried about regulatory risk. I think they're starting to explore it. I mean, you saw the Ubisoft Tezos announcement. To my understanding, there's nothing live actually, like in terms of deployment. And I've had conversation with both Epic, Roblox, and others. And so I think I am absolutely making introductions. These large publishers are in exploratory mode around blockchain, but I would say that there's very few, I think, live deployments for a large number of reasons, followed by, kind of led by compliance. I've actually written quite a bit about it, and and so I think that we got to be there in the conversation, and I absolutely can help Sushi sort of have these conversations. But in terms of when the adoption will happen, I think it will be sometime in the future. I think right now there's an increasing richness of ecosystem of blockchain native games that are using it. And in a lot of these cases, yeah, I think, it makes a lot of sense for Sushi to be plugged in on the back end. And so I think, we got to be where the conversations are, and that's the first starting point.
Totally, yeah, I get that this is more of a future type of venture, but I appreciate you answering that, and that it's sort of on your radar, so that's good. And then the other question I had was for Jeff, and we've been talking about this strike price for the option, or as what you said, the warrant. And you tweeted the other day that the average price to sales ratio of the entire DEX market is 12.7x. If Sushi traded at these levels, Sushi would trade at $39.85. We see no reason Sushi should be trading at a discount to its competitors. I think the community at large would agree with you. It's not just an average. It should probably be even above that. So people are saying with the strike price like $20, maybe $25, all-time high. Do you see that as a possibility of being higher? Just because, if you think about it in the future, it should probably be trading at even more than that level that you discussed. So I just wanted to hear you talk maybe about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt Sushi is the cheapest token on the planet, and it is worth a hell of a lot more than where it's trading right now. That's why we fought for everyone to make sure we block that first deal and get a better deal. With regard to strike, though, again, I want to reiterate that an option and a warrant are fundamentally different, right? A warrant by itself has no value whatsoever unless the market price goes above the strike, because otherwise you just go out there and buy tokens on the open market, right? All a warrant does is it gives you the right to buy it at a later time at a higher price. So let's just do math for a second, right? There is roughly 33 million Sushi tokens in the treasury. Under this new plan, over 2 years, 5 million of those will be released, and it'll raise $60 million of proceeds, right? 20 million of it at $7.75 or wherever we are right now, and double that amount, roughly 40 million, will be at that higher price, 15.50 or 16 or wherever it's struck. There will still be 28 million Sushi tokens left over in the treasury that, if we get to that $16 price, which I have no doubt that we will, would still be worth $416 million, right? If for some reason it gets to $32 per token, then that extra Sushi in the treasury is going to be worth double that at $820 million. So to me, haggling, again, I am so indifferent on the terms. If people want a higher strike or a lower or higher mature, tenor on the warrant, it's indifferent to me. What matters here is not that. What matters is Sushi is going to be selling tokens at much higher prices than where we are today, and they're still going to have a ton more in the treasury to sell at higher prices in the future. But at the same time, both strategic investors and new investors and existing investors will also be getting the same deal and will benefit on the upside. So yeah, if Sushi goes to $40, who's going to be mad? Instead of haggling over should the strike price be 16 or 22, tell me who's going to be mad if Sushi goes to $40 and Sushi sells 20 million today at 775 and 40 million at 1550 and still has $800 million left to sell at $40. That's how I think about it. I just think it's being a little, whether you're talking about bonds or options or warrants, there's a infinite amount of permutations that you can use to come up with a value. Sometimes, as a result, people overthink it. It's just not that important, right? The goal is to diversify the treasury, to get strategic investors in here and to grow the ecosystem. And that's going to happen whether the strike price is 10, 16, 20, or 30. So again, I don't care if people in the community want to set a higher strike. Okay, go for it. I just think it's irrelevant. What matters here is proving governance works, coming together, like we said, where everybody in the community has a voice, stopping a horrific deal, turning it into something much better, and ultimately doing all the things that Amy and I and everyone else this week has been talking about, including every single person who's not talking today, and how we're going to help push that forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. I appreciate you addressing that, and it might clarify some things for some people. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Crypto Bunker. I want to ask a question sort of along that line of thought. Could you just sort of clarify for me the difference between a warrant and an option, a call option? I'm not sure if the difference is that a warrant is not like liquid the same way a call, or can't be exercised early on a warrant, but it has a strike price and a expiry. Yeah, I'm just confused on the actual differences there between a warrant and a call option.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference is when you're trading options in the secondary market, there's multiple sellers and multiple buyers, and therefore the price that it's changing hands and the leverage you're using inherently to make money or lose money matters a great deal. When you're talking about a warrant issued from a company, it is basically you're just forward selling what you own. Like if somebody said, if you just struck the option and the warrant altogether and just said, hey, what would be cool? It would be cool if Sushi sold some tokens today at $7. And hey, you know what? In 2 years, if Sushi's at $16, they should sell some more. Everyone would be like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. The price is doubled. Yeah, they should sell some more. That makes sense. That's all you're doing with a warrant. You're just giving someone the right to buy it at a higher price. So yeah, if Sushi crushes it and it's at $50 or $100, certainly those who bought the warrant are going to feel great that they have the right to buy it at $16 or whatever when it's trading at 50 or 100. But it's no different than the price getting to 16 first and Sushi saying, I'm going to go sell some more tokens. So you get to the same place. So the options are listed on exchanges. They have multiple buyers and sellers. You often are using leverage to get an amplified return. A warrant is just coming out of the company's shares if you're talking about equity, or it's coming out of the tokens if you're talking about a company treasury here or protocol treasury. It's just a way to raise more capital. It's just completely fundamentally different. There's not going to be a public market for these warrants. People aren't going to be buying and selling these warrants back and forth with each other to try to make a profit. It's just future forward delivery of tokens if we meet our goals and objectives. And again, you can put any scenario on the table and say, if Sushi's at 16 or 60 or 600, is anybody going to be upset about this deal? And the answer is going to be no. Everybody wins. Sushi has an insane amount of money in their treasury. Investors did great, and we all won together. So that's how I think about it. The warrant is literally it's just a contract. It's a contract that says, hey, if we meet our objectives and our goals and the price goes higher, you get to buy more tokens from us.
Okay, so this is more on the investing partners side of things. Is I'm hearing it's like a warrant is basically a contract form of like a structure that may function similarly to a call option, but it's not the same in a call option as that options are on markets and multiple people are minting and selling at different prices. Is that? I just want to make sure I'm not missing any technical differences here between the warrants and the options.
It's 100% just from a structure of what it is, they look similar, right? They have a maturity, they have a strike price. But ultimately, it is a contract from one single party, the Sushi Treasury, to multiple buyers. That is fundamentally different than a publicly traded security that trades on exchanges that has multiple buyers and multiple sellers and trades up and down all the time relative to the different prices. Now, again, structurally, it looks similar, but it is at the end of the day, it is just agreeing on, hey, where would we sell more tokens? And again, you have to understand the whole picture to make that assessment. When we talked about there's 33 million tokens available in the treasury right now. If you sell 2.5 million today at $7.75 and sell another 2.5 million 2 years from now at $15, there's still 28 million left to sell. Nobody's going to say, you know what really was a huge mistake was Sushi selling tokens at $15 or $16 or whatever it is. Like it's just an agreement to sell more in the future that helps get people excited to own the token today and to give them more reason, even more financial incentive to help Sushi meet their goals. So, nobody's going to be trading. There might be some OTC market makers who make markets in the warrants, but it's not going to be actively traded. People aren't going to be using leverage to buy as much as they can of this like they do with options. It's just a contract. It's basically a legal contract from Sushi to the buyer that says you have the right, but not the obligation, to buy more tokens at this price.
So, so for the raise then, because like the current proposition, like both the community and the strategic partners get the same deal. So, do you would it make sense to use a call option structure? Like, I mean, not a official real call option, but like a UMA synthetic call option for the community. Would we be able to do a warrant? Because I'm getting that the warrant is a contract that almost makes it illiquid and settles on a date.
Yeah, I just also brought
Look,
Art up here to try and weigh in a
of
little
all
bit.
the things that have been happening in the last week, I haven't really dug into the UMA contract. I'm a simple is better kind of a person. I believe what UMA's doing is probably amazing. I've spoken to Hart many times in the past, even before either of us were in digital assets. I'm sure it's great, and if the community wants to explore that, that's fine. I don't think it's even mutually exclusive. You could probably agree to this deal as it is in its simple form, and then add an UMA contract later too. I don't think it's one or the other, but I've not explored it enough to know if it's better or worse. I just know that it does appear to me as if we're overcomplicating things right now. But that being said, again, we own $50 million of Sushi tokens. The deal is, this is not a, hey, Arca's getting a sweet deal here, right? There's 10 million going to strategics.
That's not.
Of which everybody's going to be scaled back more. I can tell you, Amy's runs a 12 or $15 billion fund. I can guarantee the 2 or 3 million of this is that she's getting is not going to be enough, and she's now going to go be incentivized to teach everybody at Lightspeed how to go set up a wallet and buy tokens and buy them on the open market, right? Everybody who got shut out of this deal is going to be excited to buy them. Everybody's going to get shut out compared to what they want, both on the strategic and on the public side. But it is a fair deal and it is a simple deal. So I am more than happy to hear the UMA proposal in more detail. It just wasn't my focus yet. But again, this is not my decision or Amy's decision. This is the community's decision. If that's what they really want, we'll figure it out. But I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think it's more important to meet Sushi's objectives, which this deal on the table does, to get it done quickly and be the poster child for how governance is supposed to work. And if we want to add an UMA contract later, great. Let's do that too.
Yeah, Jeff, I just want to back you up, man, and just say that I think we're spending too much time on this warrant versus call option thing. I think a lot of this is just translation from traditional finance where there's naming and semantics here. And I think I just also, I'll just back you up and say that I don't really think we need to spend too much time on the name of it. It's understanding the economics and the risk. Economics and risk are fundamentally the same to the purchaser, the owner of this thing. It's just they're structured differently. And I kind of think we're spending too much time on semantics that are kind of more wet in the traditional finance world name for things. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And by the way, I'm a huge, supporter of everybody in DeFi. And like I said, if this UMA product is great, and this is an opportunity for them to introduce a new product and for Sushi to understand it and use it, like again, that is good for the entire ecosystem. I just, I don't want this to turn into Congress where we just start putting, bloated bills together and nothing ever passes because you don't even know what you're voting on. So I'm in favor of a simple, clean vote. Let's get it done, and then separately after that gets done, and the entire world is raving about how awesome the Sushi community is and how governance works. Cool. Then let's do something else. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and Jeff, that actually matches what Omakase has been directing. I think this community to too, which is just let's go and figure out the terms, right? And then next week, after we got terms figured out, let's figure out execution. Let's separate these two things. So how exactly the Sushi community goes and implements this trade, that's step two. Let's just get to an agreement on the terms and understanding what they are, and get that up to a vote, which is what I think we're all aligned on. So I don't want us to get lost or distracted by names or structures or whatever else. Like we're very capable of figuring that out. Let's just let's get agreement on what the deal is.
Awesome. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Hart. I just want to say, because I unfortunately need to hop off, but thanks so much, Sushi, for having me on here and for all these great questions. I posted the Calendly up on the chat if anybody wants to talk one-on-one. I'm free from 9 to midnight Pacific time tonight. And so, yeah, hit me up if you guys want to carry on discussion. And just want to say thank you, Jeff, Omakase, Rachel, everybody here for what's been a really amazing discussion over the last, couple of weeks.
Definitely. And, as I keep on saying, consistent engagement is key. And I think, both Amy and Jeff have consistently engaged, right? We're seeing the culmination of that now. And it's been really amazing that, people can have different opinions, but, they can come together within governance and, work together towards a common goal. And that's the whole point of all these AMAs, all of these discussions, all these one-on-ones, right? It's to kind of structure the discussion and, work towards a common, strategic goal. So I really appreciate you being online today, Amy.
Yeah, and I'm happy to stay on a little bit more if people have questions, but I would just say again, even though Amy had to jump off, we started miles apart and now we're really close here. And again, more importantly, think about what Amy is doing at Lightspeed. They're a massive, massive fund. And, what Amy was doing originally on Sushi probably didn't even have anybody at Lightspeed notice it. And now the entire Lightspeed company is noticing what she's doing and taking an interest. And this is going to lead to Lightspeed no longer needing private deals. They're going to probably figure out how to get a wallet going, how to interact with DeFi. That's going to lead to other venture capital firms doing the same thing. It's going to lead to all these growth equities and Wall Street guys that we talk to doing the same thing. So there's a lot of positive externalities here. Just from working together and kind of getting this over the goal line. So I'm incredibly bullish and excited about where we're headed here.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. We're getting close to an hour and a half here, so let's maybe take one more question. I know Salmarie has been up for a while here. We'll bring you up for this question, and then again, we do have everything happening in the, within the forum, within our daily discussions in the general and everything here too. So we can still continue this conversation, but we've been let's finish it up here with Salmarie, please, and thanks.
Thanks, guys. I'll keep it short. Just before my question, to express my appreciation for the core team. With a background of 15 years in capital markets and 8 years in crypto, Sushi is at the top of the projects I've ever seen. I think the point about the pace of innovation and the speed of bringing new features is awesome, and I love it. And also, I appreciate the VCs coming on and interacting so candidly with the community. So thank you for that. My question is regarding use of proceeds. So, and I say that in the context of two things. One is the original proposal was 60 and it was reduced to 20. Now, the question is not in any way hostile to the proposal, which I think is fair. But if the project needs 60, let's give it 60. If it needs 10, let's make it 10. Unless I missed it, and if I did, I apologize. But I'd like to know that there's penciled in uses for the proceeds of what we're raising. And the second context for my question is the volatility in pricing, which obviously I really mean timing, right? Like the price was 3 times higher 3 months ago, and it may be half in a month. So how was the specific timing chosen?
I think this deal,
Uh,
or maybe Omakase, you go ahead.
Sure. I think there's various scenarios that led to, I guess, the timing of this event. I will say, however, the original proposal, it was oversubscribed, and I think it was written at a time. The lag between the time the proposal was written and the current price was completely off, and the current proposal, and the original proposal didn't update any of the metrics, and I think that 60 million is like unnecessary, right? But with regards to how this entire discussion and conversation got started, it kind of you kind of have to and I'm happy to post this again, which is you kind of have to read into where Sushi is right now, right? And so in this whole piece on like what strategic value means to Sushi, I posted, here's where Sushi is, right? We're kind of at an inflection point where we need strategic partners. And also, we've just come off, some discussions regarding treasury diversification. So those are 2 pretty key objectives for us, right? So if we can knock them out like 2 birds with 1 stone, then let's do it, right? Because once we diversify the treasury, that amount of Sushi is like, technically used up, right? So if we can use that Sushi, right, to kind of diversify and also attract these strategic partners, then that's like a win-win in our eyes. And why do we need these strategic partners? It kind of goes back to what I said, right? We've spent the last 3 quarters building out all the tech, right? We have all the functional components. Everything is there. Now we need to make sure all these things come together in a nice way. Once they come together in a nice way, once the UX is there, once the user experience is there, then we can really fly, right? Then it's all about growth, right? Then it's not like, you have to be a DeFi power user, right, in order to understand and use Sushi. It's about, anybody can onboard to Sushi. Any project can onboard to Sushi, right? They can access a whole range of financial tools available at their disposal, right? Any digital asset suddenly becomes incredibly empowered on one platform to basically access, on-chain, financial tools, right? Right now, you kind of have to like hop everywhere, right? Like if you want to do lending, right, maybe you have to, go onto Compound, right, or Aave, and they have a whole governance structure that's, you might not even get your own lending market on there, right? On Kashi, you can do risk isolated markets. You can create lending, right? For any Sushi, for any actively Sushi traded pair, right? So all these things are coming together, and this is the time to onboard strategics, because we need people with insight. We need people with experience on setting standards, on seeing an organization grow from 10 to 100, right? And there's lots of players out there that have that deep experience, and that's why we're engaging with them right now, right? I would say it's and to echo like what Jeff is saying, right? Like the terms are somewhat the specifics of the term, like we can fight about that all day, but at the end, it's like, can we create just like a beneficial incentive structure that everyone can get around, and can strategics also get around this as well? And if we can, then let's move forward, right? Because at the end of the day, I think the structure that's being created, right, which is no discount, warrant, right? Effectively, we're selling Sushi at a higher average than before. It's beneficial for everyone, and strategics are willing to get on board with it. And we've satisfied kind of all the preliminary objectives that we feel we need to grow, right? And I will point to one kind of key insight that was shared in the very, very, very first AMA. So SBF did come on, and he said, if you look at Coinbase and FTX, the reason why FTX did its raise is because traditionally, institutions don't hold, any FTX, and so there are network effects, within institutions, and I think Sushi is great at, establishing our network effects within the DeFi space. But as I said on other calls, being a DeFi blue chip doesn't really mean anything, right? we need to take a wider view and say, we want Sushi to be like a capital markets blue chip, right? We need to be a tool that both institutions use, right? We need to be a tool that, average users can use, et cetera, right? We've already have all the technology. We've already expanded horizontally and vertically. And I know from the outside, that looks kind of messy sometimes, but it's all there. And now it's time to piece this all together and put this growth on like move us beyond just DeFi, right? So that's the whole reason we started these discussions, because it was like a combination of treasury diversification, and also all of our products are really reaching a key inflection point. So now it's really time for us to think, okay, we've gone to 0 to 1. How do we go from 1 to 100? Right. So that's the only reason we're having, I guess, these conversations today. If it was just purely about the money, right, then it's just, we could do treasury, we could do a limit order and then get this over with, and et cetera. Right. But it's not, right, because we actually need partners to help us, guide us and give us insights and give us their experience, that they've had in the past 30 years in establishing standards for other technologies on how to kind of conquer this landscape. Because, we want Sushi to be everywhere. And that's basically what started this whole discussion.
Yeah, hopefully that covers there for you, summary. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's what I wanted to hear, that, everything is aimed to building on what has been accomplished over the past 12 months and continuing the high pace of growth and development. So thank you for that, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, summary. Jordan, the 333, I see you're up here. Hopefully just something quick here, as we are into it over an hour and a half now. So, you've quickly
Yeah, I
got
believe they
something.
had their hand up. Jordan?
Oh, hey guys. I just had a question about regulatory standpoint. What did you guys, I heard you saying things about regulations on the horizon, and I was wondering if you could speak to that.
I'm happy to say something, and then I guess I'll let Jeff take it up. I guess in terms of our strategic vision, because we're an ecosystem, we have both the projects, and this is why pipeline is super important to us. We want projects to leverage our ecosystem. We also have the infrastructure to kind of to start standards, right, for all of DeFi, right? Because if all projects exist on Sushi and leverage all these financial tools through our ecosystem, we should, we're in a position to set standards. And I think standards are very, very important for the upcoming regulatory discussions, because right now regulators, right, they don't really have a roadmap for DeFi. DeFi is incredibly new, right? 1 to 2 years at most, right? And we have the opportunity to set standards. So what does standards look like, right? We could easily say, every project that launches on SushiSwap, right? There's a certain qualification, right, that you need to have Gnosis multi-sigs, right? If you don't have Gnosis multi-sig, sure, we'll put a warning sign on your token page, right? This goes much deeper, right? We have infrastructure that monitors the mempool, right, for malicious transactions, and we can apply those same standards to all sorts of projects, right? We can say projects also have to submit their contracts for mempool monitoring services, and we can even potentially front run malicious transactions in the future, right? So these standards start to lead to consumer safety, and consumer safety really is what regulatory bodies care about, right? Because at the end of the day, right, they want to make sure that something's not being misused, and that the project is doing everything in its power to, make a safe and fair environment, right, for everybody. So we really have the power to do that. We have the products, we have the infrastructure all coming together to be able to enable us to do that, and that's why we're looking for the guidance, and also looking for the partners to actually really just come out and say, look, we're setting the standards for DeFi, right? And these are probably the standards that will be applied, right, on a regulatory level as well, right? So happy to let Jeff speak on some of his thoughts regarding this.
Sure, appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, look, regulation's coming whether we like it or not. We've been dealing with regulation for decades, and we understand what's important and what's not, and what investor protections is what they're really after. They're not coming after DeFi. They're not coming at this from a nefarious place. We've had tons of incredibly positive meetings with the regulators where we've been incredibly impressed with their knowledge of digital assets and they're just trying to figure out how to protect the average investor. And we and others can help educate them in the language that they understand. So, we wrote a blog recently on our website, ar.ca. I think it was June 14th. We talked about like why DeFi regulation is so overblown. And it's not because it's not coming eventually. It's just that it's not coming anytime soon. The regulators are definitely watching DeFi, just like they're watching the entire digital asset ecosystem. But right now, there's no statutory authority for the CFTC or the SEC to do anything until laws are passed, and Congress remains very unlikely to pass a bill probably until 2022 at the earliest. So in the meantime, we can just continue to build, but have an eye on, like it's important, but be very clear about this. Like there is no regulatory framework governing DeFi right now. And until that happens, there's no authority on the DeFi space. So it is incumbent upon all of us to continue to do things the way we think they should be done and continue to push to get that right regulatory framework in place. But in the meantime, we got a lot of time to build this and make it big and make it important, and then adhere to all the laws that eventually get built. So that's our stance. It's coming, it's important, we can help, but it's not imminent.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you. Hopefully that covers everything you needed there, Jordan. And let's Rachel and Jeff and Omakase, if you guys have got any kind of closing thoughts here around this, this is probably a great time to wrap up.
I mean, from my end, I love this. I really do. I think this has been awesome. I'm so impressed with the community and with the Sushi team, and to the strategic partners that are coming together here. And I meant what I said earlier. I think we opened the world's eyes about what this can be. I think this is a case study forever. I really do. And I think it's, not to sound like a politician, it's kind of funny. We're joking about how this is, always turns to politics. Anyone who knows me knows I couldn't care less about politics, but it is super important that we get something on the table that can be voted on and that gets through, because we want to move on to that next chapter. And I will just reiterate over and over again, you have no idea how many people with so much money and influence and excitement about DeFi are watching this and expecting this to succeed and set the groundwork for future projects. So that's all. I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate being a part of this. And, the entire ARCA team is going to go back to work.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Omakase and Rachel.
As I keep on saying, and I do tend to repeat myself a lot, really appreciate all the engagement, right? There's like around roughly 400 people, right, listening right now. We've had very active community members post things in the forum, come up on stage, ask questions, etc. I think someone described it as, in a previous AMA, this is like Sushi Week, right? Sushi Con, right? And this is all going on during EthCC. I think some of, to be honest with everybody, I think some of the discussions going on within this forum are more engaging and more exciting than, one of the talks that, I've seen at EthCC. So like this really shows the power of community. And, I think as we've prefaced with, every idea is kind of a bad idea until you, put it for review, right? Get feedback on it, etc. And I think this process has shown, this process has shown how engaged this community is, and how many people actually, pardon my French, but give a shit, in order to see like the protocol and all of our objectives advance. So regardless of like the outcome, I think the entire process has created tons of innovation, right? We're seeing proposals on for new protocols, protocol changes, etc., like meet kind of these new structured product requirements, right? We've seen traditional firms that have never engaged in DeFi, much less ever spoken on a public forum like this, really start to engage. I think that's incredible. As Jeff said, there's a lot of eyes on this, right? Everybody's looking to basically Sushi on how governance can be so engaging and is super active across all dimensions. And as I keep on saying, this whole process, keep participating, right? Keep posting stuff in the forum, right? If you have proposals, post them, etc. This is what community is all about. And there's a lot of other communities out there that are essentially rubber stamp or five guys talking in a room. That's not governance. That's not what we set out, as a team to do or build. And, I'm super grateful that, everybody actually kind of gives a shit, right, about sushi. And it really, makes me at least, gets me up every morning, come to these calls, push commits, etc. And it makes me really feel that like what, we're doing as a team and, everybody else is doing is worthwhile, right? So thanks everyone. Looking forward to, continual discussions regarding refining the details within this structure, and then putting this forward towards a vote. And if the vote passes, great. If it doesn't, back to the drawing board, or we move on to other key objectives, right, that we've laid out. Because there's a lot to do, and sushi team, we're sushi community, sushi team. We're always pushing stuff, pushing product, pushing code, pushing protocol level developments and recommendations. And it's just really exciting to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Amakase. And I think this is a good place to wrap up. We're going to have another sushi forum tomorrow at the same time, 9 p.m. UTC. Hopefully you got your Pope from today. If you didn't, be sure to stick around, right, Tangle? We'll be able to fix that up.
So basically the Pope bots are, I think we're getting kind of squandered on the Sushi Swap side here. So I'm getting, I was only able to get out 50. Yesterday I had 60. So the numbers are dwindling. I don't think it's going to work I just keep blowing up bots. So what the plan is, similar to how we'd had it kind of done before with a manual retrieval system where we'll have a website where you can come and if you've got you just need to have your user ID, your Discord user ID. So I'll maybe put up the instructions for that again, where you can just, you need to enable developer mode is the easiest way. And I think some other people mentioned an easier way to get your user ID. Once you have that, it's like a long string of numbers. You just copy that. And once you have that enabled on yourself, it's always good. And it's just good to have that number handy. And then you can just go to the website, type in that number. If that number's been caught by the bot here in the room, which everybody that's in here now will have been caught, just go into the website, type in your number, and it'll take you to a Pope link. So they're very similar to how we did for the Sushi Day Pope, if anybody was around for that, for the International Sushi Day. So that's kind of how that's going to work for this week. So if you didn't get one each day, that's okay. There's going to be a manual retrieval system, and we'll have that all set up, and I'll keep you posted on all that. So please don't get discouraged. Don't end up spamming everyone about this, and no need to reach out to me. Just stay informed in the announcements channel, and we'll get you sorted out here. So we haven't forgot about you. We've got you covered, and voila. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just going to have one last thank you to Jeff for coming out from ARCA. Also Alex as well. Can't forget Alex. And Amy from Lightspeed. She's gone, but and Omakase and Rachel and all the sushi community who is coming out to participate and engage and participate on the forums as well. It's really makes a difference. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, so we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Tangle. Or Turtle, jeez.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Dang.
All right, see everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks.